In a recent video, I laid out why I think the Oracle is going to be Diablo 4's next playable class. And while I still think that might be true, I started looking back at how the Spiritborn were originally introduced, and I'm starting to think that might not be what Blizzard's planning. Okay, so hear me out. Before Vessel of Hatred was even introduced, there was a massive leak on MMO Champions forums. It never specifically mentioned Vessel of Hatred by name, and a lot of the things in the leak were wrong. However, when you go back and look at it, a lot of what it said was surprisingly accurate. So for those of you who don't remember, way back in October of 2023, this was just a couple of weeks before Vessel of Hatred was announced, the leak predicted the region of Nahantu. It said we would be going back to Karast, and most importantly, it called out the Spiritborn by name, almost a full year early. It even described them as a glaive-using class. So I'll be the first to admit it, I didn't buy it at the time. Usually when Blizzard puts out new classes, they're named Sorceress, Rogue, Necromancer, like we understand what these identities are. They make sense, they fit. But the Spiritborn felt really out of left field. Well, clearly, I was wrong. So even where these details were a little off, the core of the leak was still really solid. So for example, it mentioned a dual resource system using Vigor and Allegiance. This is similar to what we had with the Demon Hunter in Diablo 3. So while the Spiritborn only ended up getting Vigor as their resource, Allegiance is still kinda there, isn't it? It's just not a meter anymore. My theory is that Blizzard probably just realized that managing two separate resources was going to kill the momentum of this fast playstyle that they wanted for the Spiritborn class, so they simplified it. So they turned Allegiance into a permanent choice, and that's what we got with the Spirit Hall, which gives us the power to bond with our Spirit Guardian, without the clunky resource management. And then this leak also predicted winged raid-style content. It described a raid with 5 wings, and while we only ended up getting 3 with the Dark Citadel, it does make me wonder if Blizzard's still holding these extra 2 wings in reserve to refresh the content later on. It also did talk about a season called Dreamscape, which never seemed to pan out, but I don't think the leak was necessarily wrong. I think it was probably just outdated. But the most interesting part of the leak, especially now that we're going to Skavos, is the Mercenary system. It listed 7 specific archetypes, and once you see the names side by side with what we actually got, everything starts to fall into place. The leak listed the Berserker Crone, the Bounty Hunter, the Cursed Child, the Maiden, the Mongrel, the Scholar, and the Shield Bearer. And when Vessel of Hatred actually launched, what we got were actual characters with names, personalities, and a reason for being there. Rahir, the Shield Bearer, Aldkin, the Cursed Child, Subo, the Bounty Hunter, Veriana, the Berserker Crone. 4 of the 7 were spot on. 3 of them, however, were never used. The Maiden, the Scholar, the Mongrel. So the question becomes, were these scrapped for time, or were they pushed back and repurposed? And if that's the case, Skavos becomes a really natural place to put them back in. So like I talked about in the other video, the Skavos Isles are defined by a 2-caste system, the Amazons and the Oracles. And while these are very different groups, they're very deeply tied together. So what if the reason that we're going to the Skavos Isles now isn't because we're going to become an Amazon or an Oracle, but what if it's going to be because we're going to recruit them, we're going to fight alongside of them? A Maiden archetype fits a Skavos Amazon perfectly. It's a powerful warrior woman that uses spears or javelins. Now, I know a lot of people want the Amazon to be a playable class. Put down your pitchforks. This isn't me saying that they shouldn't be. I was also a big Diablo 2 guy. I would love to see the Amazon in Diablo 4. I just don't think that Blizzard is going to bring back 2 returning classes in the same expansion. And then there's the gender issue. Historically, the Amazons were an all-women group. Now, Blizzard could get around this by introducing the Death Ravens. They were the male counterpart. The problem with the Ravens is that historically they don't leave the island. They were there to defend it. So to make the Amazon playable in Diablo 4, Blizzard would either have to make the class female only, or force a major shift in the lore to explain why these guys suddenly decided to go out and explore the world. It could happen, but personally, I just think introducing a new class would be a much cleaner fit. And then the other side of the conversation is the Scholar, which lines up pretty perfectly with the Oracle fantasy. Oracles are known for their foresight and buffs and augmenting player decisions. I know there were a lot of people in the comments asking how would an Oracle even play in a Diablo game, and I really wasn't sure. I always kind of pictured them playing similar to like a Chronomancer in Path of Exile 2, or a Mage in World of Warcraft with alter time abilities, kind of the Doctor Strange of the Diablo universe. But as a direct fighter, that's kind of a weird class fantasy to design for. As a mercenary though, that could kind of be the puzzle piece that I was missing. It kind of solves one of the biggest challenges that the Oracle would have had as a playable class. It also wouldn't remove their importance from the world or the story. And then there's the Mongrel. That one's a little harder to place. So by human definition, a Mongrel is just a dog. That could have just been the companion pets that we got alongside of Vessel of Hatred, possibly. But in fantasy, Mongrel folk are a race of hybrid humans known for their patchwork appearance and mixed lineage. This could be something that they try to work into Skavos, or they could just scrap it or push it back for a later date. But if the Amazons and Oracles are just meant to be mercenaries, that still leaves the big question, what will the next playable class be? A lot of people suggested other possibilities. Witch Doctor, Demon Hunter, Monk, Assassin, Warlock, Blood Knight. So I want to rapid fire through these and explain why I personally don't think that they fit. So a lot of the Warlock speculation comes from the silhouette and the pre-order cosmetics, specifically the Umbral Knight set that looks half holy and half corrupted, and I get the idea. The holy side represents the paladin that we already got, and the corrupted side represents the next class. So a lot of people are thinking demonic, they're thinking warlock. But in the world of Sanctuary, all humans are the descendants of angels and demons, so that's already literally expressing just who we all are as the people of Sanctuary. We're already a mix of both. And then at its core, Warlocks really wouldn't play that much differently than Necromancers. They're both dark magic, mid-range casters, built around curses and summoning minions. If you strip away the lore and the color of their spells and the shape of their minions, they really occupy the same space gameplay-wise. A lot of people brought up the Blood Knight from Diablo Immortal as another popular suggestion. And while they would play a lot different than the Paladin, I really don't see Blizzard introducing two Knight characters in the same expansion. I also could see Blizzard shying away from pulling in a class from Immortal, given how that game was publicly received.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
And then the Witch Doctor was coming up a lot, and this one kind of surprises me because it's kind of long been known that the Witch Doctor was Diablo 3's least popular class. The biggest issue that I personally have with the Witch Doctor is that they come from the Taganzi jungle, which is inside of Nahantu. If we were going to get a Witch Doctor, we would have gotten him in Vessel of Hatred, not Lord of Hatred. And then we have the Monk, the Assassin, and the Demon Hunter, which all kind of have the same issue for me. There's just way too much overlap with the Rogue and the Spiritborn. Do we really need another Dexterity class? With the upcoming skill tree reworks, the Rogue could basically be turned into an Assassin with just a few nodes. And then I can see where people are coming from with the silhouette resembling the Demon Hunter's hooded cloaks. And as someone who mained Monk in Diablo 3, I would love to see Monk in Diablo 4. But they just feel redundant. So I do still think that the Oracle could be the next playable class. But if they do show up as mercenaries, deeply tied to Skovos and their culture, then the next playable class could be something else entirely. I do still think it's going to end up being a willpower class because we have 2 strength characters, 2 dexterity classes, 2 intelligence classes. We need 1 more willpower class. And given that we did get the Spiritborn, it could be something that hasn't been established in the lore quite yet. If the Spiritborn taught me anything, it's that the name doesn't have to click right away. Oracle still makes sense in the context of Skovos. It really just depends what story they're trying to tell. And honestly, we're all just guessing here, so whether I'm spot on or completely wrong, I can't wait to find out. And if you like this video, check out this one where I look into Diablo's early 2026 roadmap and why I think things are looking a little fishy.